Hello, everyone. This is Miss Shari here. If you're not sure how to pronounce that when you see it, some people say, "Sorry, Shari," and that's how you can say my name, Miss Shari. So, friends, I am deciding to make this video for the first time, a public video. I have been a teacher and working with children and sometimes women, for a little more than a couple decades. And lately, a lot of that has been through YouTube and Zoom because of the coronavirus and shelter in place and such. And of course, I love watching YouTube videos and I love learning all the things, like, for example, how to do my own locks. I'm trying to do my own. And so I watch a YouTube video. And so some adults, though, have said to me, "Hey, you have a couple strategies or ideas and things. We'd like to see you make some videos out of those things." So this is the first one based on one little strategy, but of course, next time I'll create a lesson plan and such. But I just wanted to get on here really quick because a friend said, "Do it today," so I'm doing it today. This video, I'm just going to share with you about a strategy that I have with my children and also with my students, and that I say, never shame, explain, reframe, and make it a game. Never shame, just explain, reframe, and make it a game. When I'm talking to children, and really I think this applies to adults as well, if you want to have a relationship with someone, especially if you want to have a relationship where that person can hear you and learn from what you have to say and feel respected and uplifted, if you want to get close to someone and you want to make them feel close to you, if you want the relationship to last and strengthen and be a long-term, mutually beneficial relationship, then shame really can't be part of that. And this is the type of shame that's not about what someone has done, where they might have earned the right to feel shame. This is a shame that we place onto someone else because we have decisions or expectations or standards that we've set for them that aren't actually appropriate for that person, or that just really aren't appropriate for us to decide for them. And so in this case, for my children, I know that as children are learning and growing, they're going to experiment with words. And I do have some standards and some values that I feel about words and that I've been taught about words. But I also want my children to be children who can make decisions, who can think critically, who can use the best of what they have that there is. I want to offer them strategies and methods, not just rules. Because I want them to be able to use anything I instill in them. The purpose is for them to have a long life of excellence and success and, if you will say, self-actualization or walking in the purpose that God has prepared for them. I don't want just for them to be able to obey me. I do want them to obey me and to respect me and to be children who can behave in respectful relationships with others and be able to submit to authority. But I also don't want my children to just be little robots who don't think for themselves, who don't have a real heart for doing things that are right or excellent. And so if I shame them, they will not grow. They will not develop their own sense of confidence. They will not learn. So what I do is I explain. I tell them, if they've used a word, what that word means. What's the history of the word? What's the etymology of the word? How does it feel to people when they hear that word? How have people used it in the past? And what type of people do they want to be? How do they want their words to affect others and to affect God? And then I reframe. So we hear this word, and in this circumstance, it's often a negative word, or a word that has a negative connotation for me. It's a word that I'm not going to choose to allow in my home, that I don't hope will be part of my children's regular vocabulary in their interaction with others. And so then it's time to reframe. We're not going to focus on the negative and what we can't use. We're going to think about, okay, but we still have this thing that we want to express. Maybe we've got a feeling that we need to get out. Or maybe there's a circumstance that keeps coming up. Or maybe there's a person that we need to interact with. Or something that we've noticed, something we're curious about, something we heard on TV and we're going to continue to hear. So let's reframe it. Let's think about, what can we say? What would be something that we can create or develop or think of that would be something? And that's where the game comes in. Then we practice. Right then, we can practice using some words that have already been used. We can practice making up some other words that we think are going to make us feel good or feel good to each other, and we can all do it together, and we'll just practice it right then. The idea is, just like with, I say, with putting on shoes and socks, okay? Every mom knows that situation back when we used to leave our houses every day, and the children had to get the shoes and the socks on to get out the door. That is not the moment that you want to be dealing with the child who does not know how to put on their socks and shoes, because it's hard enough. You want to practice that putting on of the socks and the shoes and the tying and the fastening of the shoes sometime when you don't have anywhere to go. You're not on a deadline and a schedule and stress, and you don't have a long to-do list. You want to do that at some quiet time. Same thing with these words. You want to be able to take the time to practice that when you're not in the situation that requires it. So this came up this week because we've had increased TV time. And yes, I do have rules about that. But right now, we are having increased TV time. That's something that we're doing to survive right now. And we're thriving in other areas. And I do monitor my children's TV use. However, there are some shows that my children are interested in, and we just sit and I watch them with them, or I vet them for them. And some of these shows have had a lot of kids saying the Lord's name in vain, or adults, different situations saying the Lord's name in vain, because right now it's not a big deal in our culture. And let me be clear, I do not think that my children are going to say words that God is going to smite them for, or that they're going to do anything that's going to make God not love them. But I am teaching my children to honor God. And I do believe that the words that they say matter. And I want them, again, to have the best. Even with their diet. Sometimes we have treats and we have snacks, but that's not going to be most of what I'm going to give them. I'm going to give them the best of what I can for the most of the time to be the bulk of what they have in their diet. So I'm not going to allow my children to take the Lord's name in vain. That's something that we value. Also because we happen to be in a situation where we have encountered lots of suffering and disadvantage, and God has been the one that has got us through those things. And so I'm thankful for that. And one way that I can show thankfulness is to teach my children to honor God for doing those things. I do teach them to honor people who have done kind things to them as well and who've loved them well. So, however, again, I'm not going to shame my children and give them a list of don'ts and throw some book at them about what they need to do to earn something with God, because that's not the way that I believe that God works. And also, I don't believe that that's how heart change happens. I want them to practice what to do now with their words. And so I also thought back to my grandmother. I come from a long line of English teachers and scholars and historians and doctorates of Black women, especially, who worked really hard and shared history about ancestors who were killed and maimed and beaten and all kinds of unspeakable things just because they wanted to be literate in this language. Of course, we know African Americans come from kings and queens who had their own languages that were fantastic, but those things were stolen from them. So they wanted to be literate in the language of the country, which they would need to build lives in eventually, God willing that they would build lives. And so, and they want to communicate, of course. It's a human need. But everyone knew that that was a powerful and special and unique gift, to be literate, to be able to read and write and communicate with anyone, anywhere, at any time. It makes you powerful. It makes you a part of a conversation instead of a side person who can't enter into a conversation. And so my children will be excellently literate, and they will speak well. And it has nothing to do with any type of assimilation or anything like that. It has to do with, I will offer what is the best that I can find at all times to my children. And I will honor these ancestors who've done this suffering and great work so that I could have that and so that I could pass it to my children. That is something that I will do. So my children will learn the most difficult vocabulary in English, and my children will also learn other languages. So we learn a little bit of sign language, a little bit of French, quite a lot of Spanish, and we hope to also do some other languages too. We'd like to do some Asian diaspora. We'd like to do Portuguese. My older son has learned some German and some Latin as well at school. And so we want to be excellent in those languages too. But for this subject, just taking us back to the actual subject, what we decided to do to practice, instead of saying the phrases that I would think would dishonor God or dethrone him in our home and out of my children's mouths, I wanted them to practice what to say when they see something surprising or something mad happens or something shocking or any of those moments that people pop out that phrase, that OMG phrase. So my children decided to make it a game. They took it on themselves, and I was in a different room, and I overhear them saying, the baby's trying to say, gee golly willikers. So he says, gee golly whittakers. And that's one silly one. I know that's a sort of European diaspora phrase, but I think it's still a funny one. It doesn't dishonor anyone. And so they would say, oh, holy cow's milk. Which for us is something that we don't drink in our home. We have allergies to cow's milk. So there's no dishonoring of what they've been given to say that, and all kinds of different things. They have so many different silly phrases, but even they could say, wow, that's surprising. I find that astonishing. How shocking. How bewildering. Oh boy, I need to learn more about that. Or they could use some emotion words, right? Oh, I feel angry about that. Oh, I can't believe this happened. That feels frustrating to me. I want to solve this problem. I see something that needs to be addressed and dealt with. So we equip them. I don't shame, I explain, reframe, and make it a game. And they are excellent at it. They teach me things. I hope that that's a gift to you. And I look forward to seeing you next time for other tips in life and parenting.